We're going to look at HTML entities. So what are HTML entities? Well, really, they're a way of displaying symbols on your page. So let's say, for example, that we were writing a website teaching people how to code, to show them how to put a link into their web pages. Well, then we'd need to be able to show them the A tag. So something like that to start off with. But of course, if we try and display that on our page, nothing appears. And in fact, even if we just have an A tag on its own, like that, the browser won't display it because it thinks it's a bit of a link. So to get around that problem, and indeed to display any character we want, we use HTML entities. Now, it requires knowing the specific code for the character that you want to display. I wouldn't recommend learning these. I'd recommend just remembering that you can Google HTML entities, and then you've got a big list of all the ones that you want. So I'm going to go for the top result here, W3 schools, as we saw before, because it lists some of the most common ones. So you can see first off how we get these entities. So they all have an and symbol at the beginning, and then either a name or a number. And you can use either. I generally go for the name because it's a little bit easier to work out what it is, rather than remembering what all the entity numbers are. So if we wanted to display this, then we want a less than sign first off, which is and then less than, and then a semicolon there. So I would just replace that with the and symbol, so Shift 7 on most keyboards, I think. And then you can see very helpfully, my text editor actually predicts them for me. So I could get them there. If yours doesn't, that's fine. We can just type them in. So less than, LT, and then a colon there. So very quick challenge. Can you replace this symbol, the greater than symbol, with the appropriate entity name? Hope you managed it. It's simply and then greater than, and then colon. You can see it goes orange here because it recognizes that that's an HTML entity. Let's have a look then. Finally, we've got what we wanted, which was this A tag there. And then of course we could add the href equals http google.com, something like that, if we wanted to, and then that would all appear very nicely. But HTML entities are not just for coding symbols. We can use them to put copyright symbols in our web pages, currency symbols, and a bunch more as well. If we want to see all of the different entities that we can use, that second link there has them all, and there are many different entities that we might want to use. Alright, so now you know how to add characters and other symbols to your web pages. In the next video, we'll look at something really powerful, and that's including content from other websites in your web page. And you can actually do that really easily using iframes. So we're nearly at the end of the HTML section where we're going to be doing our big HTML project. But before we do that, there's one thing I want to show you. That is including content from other sites in yours using iframes. And it's actually really easy. So first off, let's say, for example, we wanted to include the Google homepage for some reason in our web page. All we do is create an iframe, and then we set the src, so just the same as with an image, to whatever we want to use. And this time I'll use everyone's favorite web hosting site, ecowebhosting.co.uk. I'm actually using that because Google blocks iframe usage. Try and put Google in there, it won't work. But if we do it with ecowebhosting, it should work fine. And there we go. You can see we've got the page in there. It's obviously in a small box at the moment, but we could change the size of that with CSS later on. And you can interact with that website just in the normal way, just clicking on links, etc. All right, so that's a basic iframe. We can also, if we want, put content from our own website in there. So you'll remember this is an absolute link because it's got the HTTP at the front, but we could add a relative link as well. So if we go back to our hello world.html, then you can see we get the content from that page as well. So this might not look like something you want to do regularly, put a whole homepage or different page in your site, but it actually can be really useful if you want to use a translation service, for example, to translate words on your site. You could use an iframe to get the data from that site and display it on your web page. One other very common use for iframes is including videos and embedding other media in your website, and that is why you might have noticed I've got this great song from Bryan Adams up on YouTube. It's not because I've been listening to it in between making videos, it's because when we go to any video on YouTube and click the share button, the arrow there, the second option along is embed, and then that gives you some code, which you'll notice is an iframe code. So I'm going to select all of that using Command A or Control A on a PC, copy it to the clipboard using Command C or Control C, and then paste it in right underneath the code that we've got there. So that's some iframe code in the wild. You can see we've got some extra attributes there. We've got a width and height setting, so that's the number of pixels wide and number of pixels high. And we've also got a frame border equals 0 setting, which you're welcome to try out on these ones. In fact, let's just pop it on there to have a look. And as you can imagine, that will get rid of the frame border. And now we have a YouTube video right there in our page. And we can even listen to it right there if we want to. There we go. Exciting stuff. All right, so congratulations. You've made it to the end of the first section of the Complete Web Developer course. You've learned how web pages are put together with HTML, with headers and body tags. You've learned about paragraphs, formatting text, lists, images, forms, tables, links, HTML entities, and then finally iframes. That's a lot of new information. And as I said at the beginning of the section, the best way to keep this new information in your head is practice it as often as you possibly can. So we're going to start that in the next video by giving you a challenge to put all of this together and make a fantastic first ever complete web page.